Hey guys, and welcome back to the Inventory Remake series. In this video, we'll cover how to set up a proximity prompt to pick up items and how to remove the default touch to pick up that Roblox provides. The changes we make in this video will also prep us a bit more for setting up the drop button in the inventory as well, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, let's get to the video. To start, we'll create a new function inside inventory server called start_dropped_items_loop, which will run once at the bottom of the start function in a second. Inside this function, we'll create a for loop that loops through all the descendants in the workspace using workspace getDescendants. For each object, we'll check if its class name property is tool, and then if it is, we'll create a new variable called hasCharacter, setting it equal to tool.parent findFirstChildHumanoid not equals to nil. Basically, we're checking if the tool's parent has a humanoid, or in other words, if it's a character model, and then we're setting that condition to a variable as true or false. Now we'll create an if statement to check our boolean variable we just created, adding an else statement afterwards. Inside inventory server, we'll create a proximity prompt and rename it to dropped items prompt. You can adjust these properties to determine how the pickup system will work. I'll change the action text to pick up, and the object text I'll leave blank for now and change later on in the script itself. I'll also turn off the requires line of sight property since that will interfere with the pickup system. At the top of our inventory server code, we'll define a new service known as collection service, setting it to a variable called CS for short. Collection service essentially allows us to add tags to objects in order to organize them or keep track of them. Under our hasCharacter variable, we'll create a new variable called hasPrompt, setting it equal to tool findFirstChild dropped items prompt, true, which will recursively search the tool to find if the proximity prompt already exists. The reason we need to do this is because later on we're going to loop this for loop indefinitely, and we don't want to add more than one prompt to each tool. In the else of the if statement, we'll add not hasPrompt as a condition, making it an else if rather than an else. Then we'll create a clone of the dropped items prompt we created inside the inventory server module, setting it to a variable called prompt. I then change hasPrompt to just prompt and hasCharacter to just humanoid, and then remove the not equals to nil from what used to be hasCharacter. I'm mostly doing this because I realized we might need the objects themselves later on, rather than just a true-false variable of whether or not they exist. Inside the else if and under the second prompt variable that replaces the first if the first doesn't exist, we'll set the prompt's parent to the tool object. In the first part of the if statement, we'll check again if the prompt exists, and if it does, we'll destroy it. This is because we don't want the prompt to be there if the item is in somebody's character, since that would mean that they're currently holding the item, and we don't want other players to be able to pick that item up. Back in the second part of the if statement, we'll connect to the prompt.triggered event, adding the player as the only parameter. We'll create a new variable for the player's backpack using findFirstChild and returning if the backpack doesn't exist. Then we'll set the tool's parent to the player's backpack to give the player the tool when they trigger the prompt. You can also additionally put the tool directly inside the player's character instead if you want the item to automatically be equipped, but you may need to make other changes as well. Back in the inventory server.start function, we'll then run the start_dropped_items_loop function we created. Before we test the game, I also realized now that I forgot to run our for loop on repeat, using a while loop inside a task.spawn so that it doesn't interfere with any code that comes after this function call in the start function. Task.spawn essentially works like running a separate script, as it runs the code inside it separately from everything else in the script. We'll cut the entire for loop and paste it inside this while loop, making sure to include the task.wait like I have. This should run all the code on repeat. Additionally, we'll create another variable above humanoid called handle, setting it to tool findFirstChildHandle. We'll add this as an additional condition to the second part of the if statement and set the proximity prompt's parent to the handle rather than the tool object itself. We'll also set the proximity prompt's object text to the tool's name property inside the second part of the if statement. Testing the game finally, we can see that a little prompt pops up when we walk up close to the tools, saying that we can press E to pick it up and also showing the tool's name. Note that this will also work on mobile and will show to press on it like a button instead. Also know that we can still touch these tools to pick them up too, which I would like to remove. This is because of the touch interest object inside each tool. If we head into server mode and remove the touch interest, you'll see it no longer picks up the tool when we touch it, but we can still pick it up by triggering the proximity prompt. In this system, I will be coding it to automatically remove all the touch interest objects in order to permanently remove this touch to pick up feature. But I want to make the disclaimer that this change will also make so the .touched event doesn't work on any of the parts inside these tools, as the touch interest is also apparently needed for that as well. I didn't realize this until after I had made the system and a member who downloaded the file had pointed it out. But if you need to use the .touched event for hit detection or anything else for your tools, you may want to skip this next step where I remove the touch interest object. From some quick research, it looks like an alternative way to remove the touch to pick up feature is to temporarily rename or remove the handle object from the tool, adding it back once it's picked up. But for this series, I will be removing the touch interest, as that's what it did when I recorded it. Getting back to the script, we'll create a touch interest variable after the prompt variable, setting it to tool, find first child of class, touch transmitter, which should be the touch object I showed you before. If this touch interest is found, we'll then destroy it to remove touch to pickup. I'll also change find first child of class to find first child which is a, since is a includes classes that inherit from other classes, whereas of class does not. Also add a second argument to find first child which is a, where you provide true, so that way it searches the tool recursively and finds children of children rather than just the direct children. Finally, we seem to have successfully removed the touch to pick up feature, but can still pick up items by triggering the proximity prompts that appear on them. These items, however, don't seem to be appearing in our player's inventory, even though they show in the backpack. We'll remove the conditions from the second part of the if statement and put them inside a new if statement inside the else portion, moving everything from before inside this new if statement. Afterward, we'll run a for loop through all the descendants in the tool, check if each one is a base part, and set .canCollide to true to make sure the tool doesn't fall through the ground when it's dropped. We'll then copy this loop portion and move it up to the first part of the outer if statement, setting canCollide for each base part to false rather than true this time, since we don't want collisions when the player is holding a tool. This, however, likely won't fix our issues with the items not showing in the inventory GUI. Our items aren't registering because the backpack.childAdded event isn't being triggered. To fix this, we'll move the backpack's child added and child removed events from player added into the character added function inside it, right under where we have the child added and child removed for the player's character model. Testing it again, this seems to have fixed our issue and the items show up in our hotbar and inventory correctly now. Just to be safe, however, we'll also add a line above the registering items loop that will essentially wait for the player's character to load before moving on. With how I've hyped out this line, I believe it ends up leading to an error later on, so you might want to change it to the following code shown on the screen instead. Though that's not to say it will be bugless with this new code. If you're wanting to work directly with my completed code for this project or any of my other videos, then feel free to become a member of my YouTube channel or my Patreon, starting at just $2.99 a month. Nonetheless, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time.